Bismillah.
Did you or the brother share the PowerPoint? I sent the PowerPoint file, so I hope it can be shared if not yet. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah al-aliy al-azim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina Abil Qasim al-Mustafa Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin la siyama baqiyatullah fil aradin ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-sharif. اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم. اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علومك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. First, I would like to congratulate you for the happy and blessed occasion of Eid al-Ghadir. And I hope, inshallah, Allah makes us grateful for the gift of wilayah and enable us to make wilayah grow in us in full-fledged way, inshallah. I pray that Allah, inshallah, grant your hajat and give shafa to ill people that you know, and send lots of rahmah and lots of nur and light to marhumi. As you remember, Ayatollah Mutahhari started discussing the idea of ethical relativism. And since this is a very important topic, we wanted to expand based on my work, which I did for my PhD on ethical relativism. So I shared with you a PowerPoint, and we first went to different types. We said there are three types of ethical relativism: descriptive, meta-ethical, and normative. Descriptive ethical relativism, we said, it's just describing what is the situation. They say there are fundamentally different moral values, either for individuals or for societies, and either all fundamental values are different or some. So there are different versions, moderate or radical versions. We talked about this. Then we talked about meta-ethical relativism. This is more philosophical in nature. The first one is something that anthropologists, historians, they can report. It's a description. This one is more philosophical. It says that there is no such a thing as one single true morality. There can be more than one morality which are equally justified. They may not say all, they may say more than one, maybe two. Not that every ethical theory is correct. Some may say it, but many of ethical relativists, they don't say it. They say there can be more than one. And as I mentioned, in the last few decades, actually, relativists tried to reduce their claim and be more, modest with their claims. Then, after talking about different versions of meta-ethical relativism, the third one, which we introduced, is normative ethical relativism. This is also philosophical in nature. This is based on meta-ethical relativism. And it says that when there can be more than one single true morality, it means that your morality can be as good as morality of someone else who belongs to another, for example, society with different moral code. So why you condemn that person if he does something according to his own system, to his own moral ideas, different from yours. Why you condemn? You should not condemn. You should not pass any judgment on them. For example, say in your society you believe that slavery is wrong. In their society, they believe slavery is okay. Like northern states of the United States and southern states before Civil War. So they had different ideas. Northern states were against slavery. Southern states were in favor of slavery. If you believe in normative ethical relativism, you would say none of the two should condemn the other one. They should just say, for us, this is bad and we don't do it, or for us, this is good, we may do it, but not condemning the other group, and therefore not also interfering. If you cannot pass judgment, you cannot also interfere. Just let them carry on. So this is the idea of those who believe in normative ethical relativism. We reached this point, history. This debate has long history. Maybe we can say it's going back to the beginning of ethical discussions. We have roots of this discussion even in the works of Plato when he reports about Socrates. So this is a long debated discussion. And many books either have been compiled about this or have discussed this among other topics, articles, etc. Lots of things. I don't know if I mentioned here or not. I always, have this memory that when I started my PhD on ethical relativism, I was in the library of University of Manchester, John Ryland's library, and this is 97. I started January 97. So at that time, there were databases in the university that we could search books and theses and dissertations. Now, many things are more advanced. Even then, I found more than 1,300 books, articles that have ethical relativism as a keyword. Some maybe all it is about ethical, some maybe 50%, 60%, 10%, 5%, I don't know, because it's based on the keyword. More than 1,300 at that time, 97. And I thought if I want to study all of them, and many of them I have to order them to come, it would take ages. And Alhamdulillah, Allah helped me with a strategy that I first started with reading articles which are in encyclopedias of philosophy, essays in the handbooks on philosophy and ethics, because normally these are written by people who have been chosen as some of the most established people in any field. So whoever is the editor of, for example, philosophical encyclopedia would choose for every entry some of the best people and then try to approach them. And these articles are also normally giving you a general view. It's not a personal view of the writer. So they try to report the main discussions on that topic. And also they normally have a section at the end that they give you books for further reading. So I started with them, and then I started reading those books which were recommended. And in this way, I expanded. And after reading some of them, I reached a point that there was nothing new in other books. So for me, there was no need to read all the 1,300. I read it in the way that I could have everything which is available in the literature was known to me, because many things then are repetitions. So it's huge topic and one of the most important topics in moral philosophy. In contemporary thought, moral relativism is also very much relying on findings of anthropologists in the 18th century and 19th century. When colonial powers, went to different parts of the world, they were shocked by different things, by the size of the world, by diversity in the world. But one thing which in particular is important for us, they were shocked with different customs and morals. I say shocked because it's very important. I think they needed time to overcome this shock and explain it. In the beginning, they thought, oh, so much diversity, so much differences. And then they doubted universal values, especially if they try to be nice. Because if they didn't try to be nice, they could say, they are all rubbish and, only our values are universal. But these people who work on the field normally are more appreciative of diversity and they respect other cultures. So they said, there are lots of different ways of looking at ethical issues. And therefore, you find that many people who wrote about ethical relativism are not actually moral philosophers, are anthropologists. And therefore, their claim is more about ethical relativism in the form of descriptive version, because they are not equipped with philosophical, reasoning. They mostly report, describe. But it was so overwhelming that some philosophers were also influenced. But now, little by little, especially after the 60s, in the middle of this 20th century, now they are going to revise and, restrict their relativism to the extent that some of the people who are relativists, other people question whether they are relativists or they are not relativists anymore. They have so much, become, modest in their relativism. So I said the rise of modern anthropology encouraged people like William Graham Sumner, Ruth Benedict, and Edward Westermarck to reopen the old relativistic question from the time of Socrates, of whether there is some absolute or objective moral knowledge. Luke's study shows that it was much discussed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, because these colonialist powers in the 18th century and 19th century collected lots of information. So at 18th was the beginning, but information collected and then put into the writing. So 19th century was, like the rise of ethical relativism, and continued up to mid-20th. But from 60s, it changed. An overall study of the literature on ethical relativism shows that unlike in the late 19th and early 20th century, the interest in ethical relativism has recently declined. Even most important relativist thinkers of our time, such as Gilbert Harman and David Wong, who have tried to reconstruct ethical relativism, have developed subtle or moderate forms of relativism, which can resist against the objections. There are lots of standard objections against relativism. So they try to redefine, reshape, revisit relativism and offer something which is more capable of resisting against the objections. Their relativism strictly dismisses the idea that in morality anything goes. They don't say in morality anything goes. They believe that there are many moral ideas which are wrong, but they say there can be more than one, which is not everything, but more than one. They both believe that morality is subject to some rational constraints. There are good and bad arguments for the moral positions people take. They both are also cognitivists. What does it mean? It means that moral statements have truth value. They can be true or false. Because, for example, emotivists, moral statements are just expressions of emotions. So when you say honesty is good, it means just, wow. It's just you are expressing your emotion. There is no truth or falsehood here. Even some of their critics, like Arrington, who was a professor in the State University of Georgia in the United States, and I met him in a conference here in UK, and because I had read his work and I liked it, so I asked him to read and comment on the draft of my thesis, and alhamdulillah, he managed to do some of it when he was still in the UK. And then I said, please take your time. So when he went back to the US and read, and commented for the rest. So I know him personally also. So Arrington says that no longer what Harman or David Wong say is relativist. They have so much reduced and limited their claims that maybe it's no longer relativism. Now, let us evaluate these claims. So we introduced three types. We talked about the history of the debate. Now let's go one by one and see whether we can agree or we disagree. We start with descriptive ethical relativism. One of my findings was that maybe 90% of the weight of the arguments for any kind of relativism is these differences that they found. Although they are supposed to just go by philosophical arguments, for example, in meta-ethical one or normative one, but still they go back to the claim that, there are many differences in the world, people disagree on abortion, etc. So descriptive ethical relativism has become the basis for most of the arguments for the other two types. And descriptive ethical relativism is simple, just putting some data together, some field studies together. So if you have proper evaluation of this one, it helps you with the other two as well. Descriptive relativism in its strongest form, which says all values are fundamentally different between individuals or societies, this strong version lacks evidence. How can you prove that all moral values are different? How can you even investigate all cases? You need istiqra, you need complete induction. How can you survey and say all are different? Have you gone to all parts of the world? Have you talked to all people of the world and you found nothing common? it's practically impossible to investigate the truth of such a claim inductively. Inductively means what we call in mantiq istiqra, means to go case by case. When we argue, sometimes we have qiyas, sometimes we have tamthil, sometimes we have istiqra. Qiyas is we go from universal to particular. Tamthil is from particular to particular. Istiqra is from particulars to universal. Since such an investigation demands knowledge about all individuals and societies across ages, different times, and across cultures at the same time, the strongest form is also contradictory to the fact that many moral principles and values have been common among the majority of people, and in some cases among all reasonable human beings and typical civilized societies. You don't find any civilized society would say, for example, honesty is bad, or keeping your promise is bad. Yes, when there are cases of conflict, as I always say, the problem starts when there is conflict. When they want to prioritize something over another thing, then differences appear. For example, honesty is good, but if I am going to lose some money, if I am an honest shopkeeper, then here some people, may, have different ideas. But no one says honesty as such is bad. In the case of conflict issue, no one would say killing is good. But whether abortion is killing or whether, aborting the child against the right of the mother, for example, the woman for her, body. So when there are conflicts, they can be, different in their opinions. Otherwise, no one questions that every human being, even a child in burial, should be respected. And also, people should have autonomy over their body as much as possible. In principle, there are no difference, but how to merge these two or, bring them together in a conflict case, that's where differences arise. And that is where we need guidance. And alhamdulillah, we religious people have guidance here. Descriptive relativism in its moderate form is more tenable. So if you say some are different, not all. But it still suffers from the fact that many examples which are mentioned by relativists are either irrelevant to morality, means it's not about morality at all. It's about customs. For example, to wear black dress or white dress when it's funeral. It's not morality, this is custom. In some societies, it's good when you are a guest to finish the food. When you are offered the food, it's good to finish. It shows that you enjoy it. In some societies, it's better to leave something to show that there is enough food. If you finish, they say, oh, maybe there was no enough. So people have different ways of showing gratitude to the host. But this is not morality, this is a kind of practice. Otherwise, they all want to show respect and appreciation. So sometimes it's not related to morality. Sometimes it's related to morality, but when you go deeper, you find there are commonalities. Inshallah, I will talk about the issue of, eating or burning of the dead bodies of the relatives that Darius, the Iranian king, faced. We talk about it. So descriptive relativism in its moderate form is more tenable, more capable of being defended and being held but it suffers from the fact that many examples which are mentioned by relativists are either irrelevant to morality or do not show fundamental differences. Because we mean by fundamental differences that the differences go up to the very roots. Not that on the surface there are differences, but then they all go back to common values in a more underlying level. In any case, descriptive relativism as such, I mean by itself, in either of its forms, can be accepted by objectivists or absolutists. It's not harmful. Suppose we say, okay, suppose in the worst scenario, all people have different moral ideas. Suppose, okay, this doesn't mean that there is no single true morality. Who said that if there is truth, people should agree on? It's a very important point. Is a requirement of truth that people should agree on it? No. Even truth can be sometimes rejected by all people, and it still is truth. Lots of scientific facts in the past were rejected, were not accepted by people of the world, except maybe prophets, ma'sumin. Everyone thought Earth is flat, apart maybe from ma'sumin or those who were trained by them. But truth is truth. Whether people all agree or all reject or they differ, in all these cases, truth is there. So in the worst case, if we accept radical version of ethical relativism, in descriptive ethical relativism, and say, all are different, fundamentally different. Okay. In Arabic, it says, "Somma mada." Okay, then what? They might have made mistakes. Of course, it's not true. There are lots of commodities, but I'm saying it's not harmful. In any case, descriptive relativism as such, in either of its forms, radical and moderate, can be accepted by objectivists or absolutists. I mean non-relativists, absolutists or non-relativists. Because their belief in a single true or most justified morality does not require any level of agreement, just as physical facts may be both true and at the same time disputed, even rejected. The standard objection to the argument from descriptive ethical relativism is that there is no direct path. Now we go to the meta-ethical relativism. There is no direct path from descriptive to meta-ethical. Descriptive is not philosophical. You say there are differences, how much, to what extent? Okay. Anyway, there are differences. Suppose we accept that there are fundamental differences. Okay. But how from is you come to out? How from a empirical claim you come to a philosophical claim? For example, if all people of the world made mistake and thought Earth is flat or Earth is the center of the world, did it mean that this was true and scientists had to adjust everything according to this? Or they had to discover the truth independent of what people thought and believed? If all people have different opinions, this doesn't mean there is no single true morality. If you want to prove, you must prove it philosophically. Or if you are a religious person, you can prove it religiously, but not from field study, from what actually people hold. So the standard objection to the argument from descriptive ethical relativism is that there is no direct path from descriptive ethical relativism to meta-ethical relativism. The mere fact of difference in ethical codes does not imply that the codes are equally true or justified. You cannot say because northern states believed slavery is wrong, southern states said slavery is right, they are equally true or equally justified. No. Such variation is in itself merely a truth of descriptive morality, a fact of anthropology, which entails neither a first order nor second order ethical view. Means it's not a philosophical idea, and it's not a philosophical idea about a philosophical idea. It's totally empirical. There is no way to go from what people believe to what really is the case. There is no logical implication here. 100% of people, 99% or 0% believe in something. It doesn't mean that just because they believe it is true or false. Maybe all people of the world believe in God. Maybe all people of the world one day reject God. It doesn't matter. We have to look into the arguments. We have to establish for ourselves what is the truth. People want to agree or disagree, or partly agree, partly disagree. We go by the arguments. You know, in Hausa we say, "Nahnu abna'ud dalil, namilu haythu yamil." We are children of reason. Dalil means reason here, not aql. Dalil means reason. Means in the sense of argument, proof. We go wherever the argument, the proof takes us. We follow the truth through the proof. There is no way to go from what people actually believe to what really is the case. There is no logical implication here. So, we discussed descriptive relativism. We said, you know, the strongest version cannot be proved, the moderate is fine, but no matter which one you take, it doesn't have any harm. About meta-ethical relativism, we said that there is no way to establish meta-ethical relativism based on descriptive one. Now we go quickly to the normative. Of course, I am making it very simple and very brief. The book is more than 200 pages. You know, my book on ethical relativism. I'm trying to make it very simple. As a reminder, what was normative ethical relativism? The idea that you cannot pass judgment on someone from another moral system, and you cannot also interfere. So, Bernard Williams, in his book, which was published in 1972, says that this view was popular among some liberal colonialists, those who were, you know, more, you know, kind of considerate. They didn't want to impose their ideas, especially amongst British administrators in West Africa and the like. And he says, despite inconsistency of this view, it may have had a beneficent influence at that time. So philosophically, whether it is true or not, is something, but practically it was good because then they didn't impose, they respected, you know. So if I go to another culture and believe that their moral system can be as true as mine, this can lead to respect and tolerance. Of course, I will mention that this is not the only way to be tolerant. And also, this doesn't guarantee that those who believe in ethical relativism are tolerant. So you can be tolerant and non-relativist, and you can be relativist and non-tolerant. But in that case, yes, these people were more tolerant because they believed in kind of relativism. I think Wong is also right that normative relativism is often defended by anthropologists. The reason I mentioned this is because he says this, these are anthropologists, he's himself relativists, not philosophers. Perhaps in reaction to those Western conceptions of the inferiority of other cultures. So these were more nice people, more nice anthropologists who said, you know, we should not feel they are inferior to us because they have different ideas. The standard objection to the argument from descriptive ethical relativism Sorry. In general, adherents of normative relativism, including anthropologists or non-anthropologists, argue for it or for the principle of tolerance from descriptive or meta-ethical relativism. I have not yet observed any other argument. So you have to believe in the first or second type so that you believe in the normative one. This is the way they argue. The problem with the former, i.e. the argument for the normative relativism from descriptive relativism, other than the problems which are in descriptive relativism itself, we are not repeating those problems in descriptive relativism, but just we are now saying, suppose descriptive one is okay. Can you argue from descriptive relativism for normative relativism? Say no, there is no logical relation. There's a gap here between empirical fact of diversity of morals and the non-empirical normative claim of the necessity of non-interference. There's no logical relation here. Actually, the relativist has to agree that whether to judge about others or not, or whether to be tolerant of others or not, can be one of the things on which societies may disagree with each other. Because you say, you go by your own moral system, I go by my own moral system. Okay. Then maybe my moral system says I have to do Amr Ma'ruf. For example, even if someone believes in another system, at least in fundamental values. For example, if they want to torture people, if they want to kill innocent people, if they want to oppress people, I cannot say because according to them it's okay, I keep silent. At least my moral system may not allow you this. So why you say I should give up my own moral, requirements, and all of us have to accept your principle of non-interference? At least we can judge, and sometimes if needed, we may need to do something practically to stop. And today in the world, no one accepts, for example, if a system is, killing others or doing apartheid, etc. People, no one will accept this as a moral practice. Whether they do something to stop or not is another issue, but no one says this is a moral practice. So this can be one of the things on which societies may disagree with each other. And then if they argue based on meta-ethical relativism, the problem would be that in addition to the problem with meta-ethical relativism itself, just arguing from meta-ethical relativism for normative ethical relativism, the problem is that in no clear way, any of the previous metaphysical relativist doctrines, in my books, I have mentioned about, maybe 16 arguments that might be mentioned for supporting meta-ethical relativism. None of them would imply normative ethical relativism. One can consistently maintain that there is no single true morality. Suppose someone is a believer in meta-ethical relativism. Okay, you can genuinely believe in this. We don't believe, but if someone believes, okay, and still not believe in normative ethical relativism, and say, I want to pass judgment on others. It is actually a sign of my honesty, a sign of my consistency, a sign of values for me being universal, that if I see someone is doing something wrong, I can say this should be stopped. Whether I'm going to interfere or not, that's another issue, but at least in my heart I can say this is wrong. Moreover, normative relativism is standardly criticized as incoherent and self-refuting. So first, there is no argument for it. Second, it's self-refuting. It seems to prescribe for all individuals, groups, and societies an ethics of non-judgmental tolerance and non-intervention. But such a universal prescription would turn incoherent if I pass judgment on those who pass judgment on the behaviors of others, because if you believe in that, so you have to say, whoever passes judgment on others, I condemn him. So you are yourself passing judgment on people who pass judgment. So you are rejecting yourself. It's self-refuting. Such a universal prescription would turn incoherent. If I pass judgment on those who pass judgment on the behaviors of others with different morality, I must condemn myself, since I have tried to impose a value of tolerance on everyone, even if they have no such value. But this is not what I am supposed to do under the strong version of normative relativism. Of course, any adequate moral system, and of course we say and because we believe there's one can be true, but any adequate moral system, any moral system which has power of explaining, all our moral experiences and guide us, should set up some practical rules as how to behave in a multicultural world or society. Now, many societies have become multicultural, and at least our world is multicultural. Now, many cities are multicultural, but if you are living in a society or a city that is not multicultural, at least the world is multicultural. What should we do when we are faced with people of different cultures, different ideas, different moral rules? There is a great difference between practical compromise and doctrinal compromise. This is a very important point. It's also about the issue of pluralism. What I mean that maybe I say my neighbor who, for example, doesn't believe in my faith and doesn't come from my cultural background, maybe still I can say what they do is wrong. I cannot stop judgment, because then this means theoretically I'm compromising. I'm compromising about truth. I'm compromising about consistency, about universality of truth. So maybe I can say what they do is wrong, but maybe practically I decide not to mention this to them or not to try to stop them, because I have to then allow that if I do this, they may also do this with me. And there is no, kind of system here that says, because you, for example, are a believer in God or you're a believer in Islam, okay, we judge between you two according to Islam or according to faith. We need to find a common ground. If one is Muslim and Christian, still it's easier because there is a ground of faith, Abrahamic tradition. But for example, if someone is atheist, or someone is, Hindu or Buddhist, or I don't know, different kinds of people. So how we should interact in a multicultural world, multicultural society, how we should interact internationally between different countries. So these are things that may lead to adopting some practical policies that we decide, okay, we don't interfere in affairs of another country, or we don't interfere, in the life of another culture. Or we may say there's a limit. Up to this limit, we don't interfere. But for example, if it reaches a level of, human crimes against humanity, maybe we interfere. So these are many things that we can discuss. But theoretically, we don't compromise about truth, and we don't compromise about passing judgment if we have enough information, of course. If you don't have enough information, you cannot pass judgment even on people of your own family. This is another thing. Moral compromises are forced on people by circumstances, and we should not think that they change the moral quality of action. When we are forced to compromise, practically what we need to have for our action is an excuse. Other. It means that it is wrong, but I have an excuse. But if you theoretically want to compromise, you need justification. You need dalil. Totally different things. You know, sometimes, for example, I say, okay, you cannot make wuzu, do tayammum. You have excuse. But sometimes I say, for example, you know, because, you know, water is, I don't know, expensive, make a wuzu. So I'm compromising theoretically because this was not in the ruling. Yes, if it is not affordable, you know, and you're going to suffer, that's another issue. But for example, if someone says, now in this age, water is not very common and very available, so you have choice. You can make wuzu, you can make tayammum. This is compromise in theory. So when theoretically we change our idea or compromise, we need a justification to show that it's really right when properly understood. Circumstances support excuses and do not serve as justifications. Then there's a discussion here about tolerance, and the summary of it, our time is over, is that we may not accept relativism and still believe in tolerance, believe in respect, believe in non-interference. It depends. And someone also may be relativist and not tolerant. It depends. You have to look at the entire system that they have. It's not that every relativist is tolerant, every non-relativist is not tolerant. No. So this is also another issue that I have discussed here. I hope you have got the PowerPoint. So Alhamdulillah, our discussion on ethical relativism summary and brief discussion finished. Inshallah, next session we go back to the book. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Hope you're well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for this excellent talk. Of course, I've been through this series of lectures with you in person on moral philosophy. And I really appreciate what you talked about today, about the doctrinal and the real difference, as you said. And living in these countries, we find that we have to compromise in many things, living in a multicultural society, so that things have come to a head that even our children, they come and ask us why things like, say, same-sex marriages are wrong. And it's very hard to explain it to them. How do we go about these things while we are still compromising and living in a multicultural society, living in societies where we see these things happening? And we're not supposed to comment on those things or try to explain them away to our children.
Yeah. So first of all, we should not compromise about our understanding, our theory based on these pressures. So if Islamic position is clear and our great scholars have come up with, you know, certain understanding, so we should not change our understanding. Unfortunately, some people change their understanding and say, maybe today is different, maybe, you know, these positions were not, you know, very strong, etc. No, this is the position. If mujtahideen change their opinion, yes, if there is a new scholarship, no problem. But as long as this is the best scholarly understanding, we follow it. And certain issues like, you know, marriage with the same sex is something that all Muslims, Sunni, Shia, you know, Christian, Jews, all agree on. Maybe now some people compromise, but this is different from a fatwa of one marja differing from fatwa of another marja about some details. This is one of the very clear features of Abrahamic faith, and indeed other cultures also, even non-Abrahamic faith had this idea. If today people are changing, that's another issue, but all traditions up to now, they had this idea. But for us, our roots are, of course, based in the revelation. So we should be theoretically clear. We don't compromise about our theory. And we educate ourselves and our children. In all circumstances, we have to educate our children. If we are not able to educate our children, even they watch us in our home and, they cannot talk to them, then maybe we have to go somewhere else. But if we can educate our children, and if in our own practice, we can practice what is needed. Sometimes there are secondary ahkams, but this comes from Maraja. If Maraja say, still you have to observe, for example, hijab and go to work, otherwise, don't go to work. Or some say, no, maybe, for example, for education, you need to know education. So if, for example, in France, they cannot go with hijab, some Maraja may say, still you go and, get educated and then put hijab outside university. This is coming from scholars, high rank scholar, Maraja. But anything that at the end I have to do, either as a hukm awwali or as a hukm thanawi, anything that would not question, would not damage my relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, anything that I can say I am still, doing what I am supposed to do as a hukm awwali or thanawi, I have to do it. Otherwise, we need to go to a better place. Alhamdulillah, right now, in almost all over the world, there is some level of freedom that you can, educate your children, you can, practice, but there are lots of pressures from outside to make you think like them, to make you believe like them, to make you even endorse what they do. You have to resist against these pressures. And then what type of approach you have? Should you have confrontational approach? Should you have soft and dialogue-based approach? These are different things that has to be discussed. So I think in general, but case by case can be different, from country to country can be different, issues can be different. But in general, we have to be as much as possible investing on education and formation of ourselves and our children, so that they are confident, they have clear sense of identity and belonging to the community, but at the same time, they are not rigid and they are not, troubled if they see people are doing other things. We have our own understanding. We cannot expect they do like us, but we can have our own understanding, identity, belonging, and we should learn how to do maneuvers so that without confrontation, we maintain our practice. You see what some other faith communities do. Almost they do everything they want, but they keep it quiet and they don't, let anyone to confront them. So we have to understand what's the wise way of remaining strong in aqidah, but soft and gentle in behavior, especially interaction with other people.
Thank you very much.
It's
a difficult thing really though,
yes.
Because those other communities, they have loads of money and efforts. They've put their own schools and everything, which we haven't done to that extent or to any reasonable extent. So perhaps another lecture is needed on how we can tackle all these issues there and what we can do about it. Thank you very much.
Allah bless you, inshallah. And this is why making Islamic schools and supporting Islamic schools are very important. Sometimes people with difficulty make a school, but then people don't send their children there. And they expect from this school, from the first day, to have a high level and a standard of education comparing to the governmental schools which are funded and supported. We have to work together. Of course, they have to raise the standard, but on the first day, you cannot expect them to be equal. Or for example, you say, governmental schools are free. Why I should give money to go send my children to Islamic school? This money is not wasted. This money is not spend it the way you can say, I will save it if I don't give it. So we need to support our schools, our madrasas. And one great support is by sending our children, encouraging them to go to this. Another is by, volunteering, by financial support. All together, we have to make these institutions work. And those who work in these institutions also, they should feel responsible that they have to offer the best possible standard as much as they can. They should not relax because it's a community and outsiders are not here. They should be very hardworking, and alhamdulillah, normally they are. And on the other hand, parents should lower their expectation to what is reasonable.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Thank you for your lecture and for your effort, mashallah. My personal problem is language. I am just trying to talk, not
you speak very well, mashallah.
Not good in English and I'm not fluent, but trying to convey my point. I have seen a quote on social media that is, thinking is difficult, that's why most people judge. Can you explain this point?
Yeah, so as I said, even with people in our family, we need complete information to be able to judge. So we shouldn't rush in judging. Yeah. But what we were talking about is about universal issues. So for example, whether modesty, for example, is good or not, whether honesty is good or not, whether slavery is good or not, whether abortion is good or not. These kind of things are things that, based on your moral system, you may pass judgment on those who have different idea, because you have to be consistent, you have to be universal. But I am not talking about a general rule. I'm talking about, for example, this person in family or this person in community who has done something that seems to me has conflict with our principles or values. Here you have to be careful. So if someone says, is abortion, for example, permissible or not, you say, this is our idea. But someone has committed, for example, abortion. We should not rush in condemning that person. Maybe that was a case that they had excuse, because there are different cases. How early was it? How early was the pregnancy? Was it, safe for the mother? Was not safe before, soul was created? Not. There are issues. I cannot quickly rush and judge, about a person who has done something. Okay. I see someone, for example, with his wife or daughter who doesn't have proper hijab. I should not rush and say this man is, not doing his job properly because he doesn't, make sure his wife or children have hijab. Who knows? Maybe this person is struggling day and night. Maybe, is doing his best, but this is not possible. So judging about people in individual cases is very, very difficult, and it needs you know everything about that case. Only Allah knows almost, everything. Yes, if you have enough and reasonable information, especially if you have given chance to the person to, present himself, to defend himself, you have heard him, sometimes you can make decision. as a manager, as a, I don't know, educator, as a, but in, life, when I cannot really talk to people about what they do, and, I have not heard them, I have not given them opportunity to talk, then it's very difficult to judge, unless they do something which is obviously wrong. If they do something obviously wrong, yes. But if there is something that there is a way that Islamically could be understandable, could be acceptable. So this is why, for example, we say in our hadith that, if you hear something from your brother, try to interpret it in a good way. If 70 people come and report about your mu'min brother or sister, and he says something else or she says something else, don't trust those 70 people. Of course, this doesn't mean that if it is 100% crystal clear, you fool yourself. No, but it means that as long as there is a chance that something can be excused or can be understood differently, don't make up your mind and say, this person has made mistake. This person is no longer a good person. Try to give, credit of doubt and be careful in judging, but it doesn't mean that you don't do anything. If you are responsible for that person, and either personally or as a family or community, etc., if it's an important issue, you try to find out what can you do, how can you help. This is all out of love. It's an art. But those who rush and condemn, many times they don't have this artistic work. They just want to say something and attack people, and and many times this is not going to bring that person. Many times it's going to make the situation worse. So wisdom again here is very important, to find how to keep your sense of responsibility, to keep your care, love for all mu'mineen and mu'minat, but at the same time, not to rush, not to judge quickly, not to attack, not to excommunicate, keep bridges there, so that the person can, if has made mistake, can come back. And if he has not made mistake, their reputation is saved.
Thank you very much
for
covering all the angles. MashaAllah.
Great. Thank you. Please pray for us, inshallah. We can understand true Islam and inshallah convey it and practice it, bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum, Moulana.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, Moulana, my question is we're talking about sometimes we are in our norms, in our culture, in our family, there are people who are creating problems for us on religious point of view as well. They connect the very, very basic beliefs. For example, after so much getting to understand the information, like why marja are important and how their orders are important, and not orders, in fact, how their fatwas are important, how the way they are struggling in the fields of a hadith, that those things are important. So people in families sometimes try to put their beliefs higher than ours. Like they try to, just because they are more in groups, like they're trying to impose their beliefs on you and saying that you are not on the right path. What are those things we should be checking on ourselves to keeping that light of information, that light of knowledge enlightened in us, that we should be, we should not become low in confidence that maybe we are wrong. For example, a very basic topic about Mola Ali Vilayat and the Salsa, these major problems, when we literally are sometimes feeling maybe we are wrong, they are right, and other things following up. So what are those things we should actually be checking on ourselves when we are facing such things, that the belief system, the aqaid are actually attacked by other people? So how should we keep a check on ourselves?
There is only one truth. in every issue, there is one thing that can be true. Number two, truth sometimes is obvious. Like, for example, I can see now it's day. I can see light of the day. So it's obvious. Sometimes truth is something to discover. To discover, sometimes again, it's easy. For example, someone says, you know, this city is like this. I say, okay, let me go to that city and see. Sometimes to discover the truth is a matter of decades of research, of a study. So we want to understand truth about a fiqh issue. It's not, you know, to travel to Qom and Najaf, see the truth. Yeah. And it's not like looking at the sky and seeing the truth. Truth here needs decades of a scholarship. So how can I see the truth? I cannot see the truth directly. I can see reliable ways towards the truth. So I have to choose with investigation, with research, as much as you need, till you are sure. Do your best research and find who is the most knowledgeable muttaqi marja. If then your marja says something, or if all marajas say something, and then some people don't accept, you shouldn't then question this understanding. Because truth is one, and in such case only it's a matter of decades of research that can give you an access to the truth. And for you, you have to follow such people. So if all people of the world now tell you that you should act differently, you say, no, I don't have any better way than this. But if they don't accept, can be patient. You don't need to prove to them. Yeah. When you explain the point, when you discuss with them once, twice, three times, they don't accept. Okay, give it a time. Be kind to them, be, you know, respectful to them, but don't give up. Amir al-Mu'minin says, لا تستوحشوا في طريق الهدى لقلة أهله. If you are on the path of guidance, don't feel lonely because not many people are here. If you have not inquired about what is the path of truth, yes, you have to worry. Maybe I made mistake. Why no one is here? But if you have done your job properly, you have worked hard to establish what's the most reliable way to access to the truth today in this age. And you have chosen the best scholarly approach to the truth. Now, whether millions of people also are with you or you are alone doesn't make difference.
Yeah. One more question, Aga, if you have time.
Yes.
Like we are told that to keep husn zan towards other people, to mu'mineen, we have to give ourselves like 100 good reasons that why the person did this or that, which might be disturbing in the matter of fact, but we have to give ourselves, you know, a good thought about what are they doing. But sometimes people are potentially doing stuff which is like small things, but which is not very good. So in, you know, relation to the relatives and stuff. Also, I will take you a little bit to Ahl Bayt as well. My question was like literally very disturbing question, I will say, that why, you know, why there are many imams who were killed or were poisoned by their own wives. Their wives killed them. So Imam sees through the person, their future, past, everything, because he has information by Allah. They kept so much enemy-like people so close to their life. Like they literally kept them in the form of wives, you know, those people who were so much in enmity with them. This is a part of my question. And the second part is like, how many times should we forgive the people around us, the relatives who are literally harming us on a daily basis, or maybe not daily basis, on occasional basis when we go and meet them, and they are consistently doing those things which are not really, but they have got our blood relations with us. So how many times should we forgive? And why, imams?
Like
I know, like,
can you give example?
For example, if we are having a majlis and we prepared, your nazar of Imam Hussein, and sometimes the thing become less or more, or it's shortage, or somebody didn't get enough, they'll start talking, or things like that, which are very, very pity, but they start making big issues out of it. Like, we didn't get enough niyaz, or like, start this majlis was not enough, properly arranged and stuff like that. Very small things. Or sometimes spreading rumors about people, about you, which are not true, and not just not one person, like a lot of people will know it, and you don't even know about it, if that thing exists in you or not. So things like these. So these are two part of questions. Like, first, why Ahmad chose so close people, so having so much, enmity, and second thing is like, how should we deal with them?
Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam had to deal with people according to the general rules, not according to ilmul ghayb. So even if Amir al-Mu'mineen knows that Ibn Muljam is going to kill him, he should not change his behavior towards him. First of all, he knows that this is going to happen. And Allah gives him this amana, this knowledge as amana, because Allah knows that he is not going to, change his behavior. Secondly, he is our role model. If Imam kills someone because in future he's going to kill him, then every person starts killing other people and say, no, I was sure that they are going to kill me. Say, but Imam had ilmul ghayb. So Imams act not according to what was exclusive to them. They act according to the parameters that are available to us, so that we can also learn. And this is actually the great size of their patience and, large heart, that they can live with people that they know what they are going to do in future, but they try to keep calm. They try to keep relations today normal, because today this person has not yet committed that crime. So this is actually the reason why then Allah gives them this kind of knowledge. Allah doesn't give knowledge to someone that is going to use this knowledge in a personal way. With respect to your second question, these things that happen in family or among friends, for example, you prepare some food or niyaz, they, may say, was not enough, etc. You should take it, first of all, as a sign of concern, as a, honest statement. They want you to do something, better, not they want to complain. But even suppose you say, no, I know this person always wants to, complain and lower my, for example, performance or a position, etc. Take it easy. Don't let these things affect you. Many times we may also say things like this to other people without even knowing, or sometimes maybe knowing. We are not all, ma'soom. So take it easy. Don't let this affect you. Be always like a person who is above these things. When children fight each other and an adult looks at the fight of children, you feel, very, sometimes, sorry for them, but sometimes also maybe you laugh that, why they are, fighting over these things. I remember one of my teachers, was saying that, sometimes when he looks at his grandchildren, so he sees, how they fight over, for example, on one piece of pofak or, crisp, or even, for example, sometimes, a child is crying and, mother or father clean the nose, start crying, why are you clean my nose? These are childish reasons for fighting. Okay, we are adults. Maybe we don't fight for that. But if someone is higher, again, when look at us, what are you fighting? about and over. You know, they laugh at us that, you know, we fight over this. You know, many issues, disputes between husbands and wives, between siblings, I don't know, children and parents, many of them for someone who is higher than us is laughable. Although for us it's very serious, you know, we cry, you know, like a child who cries when crisp is given, taken away. So we have to rise above. Don't let this affect us. Don't let these things affect our relation with other people. Yes, if there is a matter of someone is doing haram, obvious haram, which has no other interpretation, we have to worry about that person. We have to find out a way to stop that. But if it is just not being nice to me, not be respectful to me, not be kind to me, you have to rise above this. No one can take away your dignity if you are connected to the source of dignity.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Moulana.
Thank you. Okay, inshallah, we have our session maybe then after Ashura, I think, yes? So, because the next session will be in the first Ashura. I don't know if you are going to have it or we are going to have it after Ashura. Is one of the organizers here?
Yes, Sawaba will confirm it to you, inshallah, whatever is the plan.
Yeah. So maybe then the next will be after Ashura, inshallah.
Okay, sir.
Inshallah. Thank you very much. Iltimas dua.